Welcome in on this Tuesday. I'm Mugo Odigwe. The White House with another move showing it is not backing down in its battle against Harvard University. And at the same time, NPR pushes back against the Trump administration over federal funding. Plus, terrifying moments in South Florida when a boat explodes. We'll go to Fort Lauderdale for details on the chaotic scene. This is CBS News 24/7. And we begin with a live look from Atlanta, where the wet and stormy weather, well, it continues in the South today. Meteorologist Jessica Birch is timing all of this out for you. As we track those storms, we are keeping an eye on how it might affect the roads and the skies after the record-breaking holiday travel rush from Memorial Day. This is the FlightAware Misery Map showing some of the trouble spots at airports right now. The red shows where we are seeing the most delays and cancellations. And looking live from Denver, that is just one of the spots dealing with a travel headache. Earlier today, heavy fog. You can still see some of it on the sky. There are forced delays at the airport. According to FlightAware, all inbound flights being held at their origin until 11:30 a.m. Mountain Time. Also at this hour, police are looking for jail escapees in several different states. And we start in Louisiana, where 3 more of the 10 inmates who broke out of a New Orleans jail earlier this month, well, they have been captured, but 2 more inmates are still on the run. And the manhunt continues for an escaped inmate in Arkansas. Police are looking for Grant Hardin, a former police chief who escaped from prison on Sunday. Hardin is serving decades-long prison sentences for murder and rape. And in Ohio, 3 inmates, they are still at large, but another is back in custody after the 4 escaped a minimum security facility in Columbus. The group got out by smashing a window just last week. CBS News is also watching developments in courts across the country. The federal sex trafficking trial of Sean Diddy Combs resumed today in New York City after a 4-day break for the holiday weekend. And jury selection starts today in Washington State in the trial for former basketball star Shawn Kemp. The former Seattle Supersonic is accused of assault for shooting at 2 people in a mall parking lot back in 2023. Kemp says the 2 people he targeted broke into his car and stole several items. We'll keep you updated if we learn more from court today. But our monitors right now showing you a good start to the week on Wall Street. The Dow is up, as you can see there, more than 600 points after President Donald Trump's delayed tariffs on the European Union. CBS News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady will join us later in the hour. All right. Once again, it is Harvard versus the Trump administration. CBS News can now confirm the oldest university in the U.S. could be out of an additional $100 million soon. This development comes out of a letter expected to be delivered to federal agencies at some point today. It contains the Trump administration's request to cancel all remaining federal contracts with Harvard University. This is just the latest move in the showdown between the White House and Harvard. Since last month, the Trump administration has frozen about $3.2 billion in grants and contracts with the university. And then just last week, the White House attempted to block the university's ability to enroll international students. Here are the president's words on social media. He said, "We are still waiting for the foreign student list from Harvard so that we can determine how many radicalized lunatics, troublemakers all, should not be let back into our country." The president added, "The best thing Harvard has going for it is that they have shopped around and found the absolute best judge. Have no fear, the government will, in the end, win." And we've got team coverage from Washington to Boston. In moments, CBS News Boston's Louisa Moeller. But first, let's go to CBS News correspondent Natalie Brand, who is live at the White House. And Natalie, what else is in that letter?
Hi, Mugo. Well, CBS News has obtained a copy of this letter, which was sent to federal agencies, really asking them to examine any outstanding contracts that they have with Harvard University to determine if they're necessary or in line with administration policies. And from what we understand, there are about 9 agencies that have about 30 contracts totaling $100 million. We're still working to learn more about what kind of contracts we're talking about, but we've learned from one administration official it includes research services, also some health research. And as you know, Mugo, this is just the latest action targeting Harvard University. The administration continues to allege discrimination and also saying that the university is not doing enough to protect Jewish students.
Okay, Natalie, thank you. And please stand by for us because we'll talk to you soon. Right now, though, we want to bring in CBS News Boston's Louisa Moeller. She is live in Cambridge at Harvard. And Louisa, you're speaking with people on campus. What has been their reaction to all of this situation?
Well, Mugo, first of all, it is commencement week, and I'm sure you'll see caps and gowns milling around behind me. And overshadowing this celebratory time, there's an air of fear and resolve. Fear, of course, by the international students here who make up about a third of Harvard's enrollment. They are fearful about the future here at Harvard, and they want the leadership here to continue to back them in the courts, as they did last week, suing the Trump administration after the Trump administration tried to halt the enrollment of international students here, and publicly, as President Alan Garber did this morning in NPR. At the same time, there is a very real funding crunch for Harvard as they face the freezing of those grants and next, potentially, the ending of these contracts. I spoke with political science professor here, Ryan Enos, about why he thinks the administration of Harvard is willing to stay in this fight for the long term.
In many ways, it's not just a battle between Trump and Harvard, even though that's the way people describe it. It's a battle over thinking about the rule of law in the United States. And I think Harvard has shown that it's committed to being on one side of this. And in that way, I don't think it's going to back down. The tangible impacts just keep coming. Students are feeling them, professors are feeling them, everybody involved in research is feeling it now. We've seen more and more stop work orders for projects where people are actively doing research that was awarded to them by the federal government because they were deemed the best people to do it. We're now seeing that research shut down. And with the order today, I'm sure we're going to see more and more of that. They're sucking everything they can out of Harvard as part of this political grievance they have.
Now, I spoke with several students who say they want their voices to be a part of this national conversation. There's going to be a rally this evening at 5:30 by international students. I also had one student tell me that he continues to be upset that the Trump administration is painting Harvard as a discriminatory school, and they are actually passing around blue pins for graduates to wear on their jackets to show that they stand up against anti-Semitism. Live in Cambridge, Louisa Moeller, back to you, Mugo.
Louisa Moeller, thank you so much for joining us on 24/7 today. We appreciate your time. And by the way, that letter we were mentioning, we just learned it was sent out as of this morning. So a very, very important development there. We want to go back now, though, to Natalie Brand for other news coming out of the White House. And Natalie, another showdown we're watching is the one playing out between Presidents Trump and Putin, of course. What is the latest there?
Well, Mugo, we have a new social media post by President Trump where he says Putin is essentially playing with fire. Let me read from this latest post from President Trump. He says, "What Vladimir Putin doesn't realize is that if it weren't for me, lots of really bad things would have already happened to Russia. I mean, really bad. He's playing with fire." This comes, of course, after over the weekend, President Trump in another social media post said that Putin has gone absolutely crazy. And that post following an escalation in attacks by Russia on Ukraine over the past 48 or so hours. Russia launched the largest drone strike attack on Ukraine since the start of the war. So clearly President Trump not happy with this escalation since, you know, this is supposed to be during ceasefire negotiations. It was just a week ago when President Trump had that phone call with Putin and said that Russia and Ukraine agreed to immediately begin ceasefire negotiations. But since then, and in the months that we've been talking about these hopes for negotiations, Russia has only really escalated its attacks on Ukraine and on its civilians, its citizens. So the question now now? What steps do the administration take? President Zelensky of Ukraine has been calling for tougher sanctions. That's something that some Republican lawmakers and a group of bipartisan lawmakers over on Capitol Hill are pushing for as well, for the U.S. to impose new sanctions on Russia to try to exert some additional pressure here.
Yeah, we'll see what comes out of that. And Natalie, I also wanted to ask you about this fight between NPR and the White House. What's the latest there?
Well, NPR and 3 Colorado public radio stations have filed a new lawsuit in response to the Trump administration executive order to try and cut federal funding to NPR and public broadcasting. And the radio stations and NPR really argue that this is a violation of their First Amendment rights and also a violation of separation of powers and the power that Congress has to appropriate federal funds. The lawsuit is very detailed. It talks about, this money coming from Congress has bipartisan support and that Congress set up a structure to try to insulate public broadcasting from government interference. So this lawsuit filed just today. President Trump, the Trump administration, or I should say the White House, a spokesman put out a response alleging that the Corporation for Public Broadcasting is creating media to support a particular political party on the taxpayer's dime. Therefore, the president is exercising his lawful authority to limit funding to NPR and PBS. PBS not part of this particular suit, but that will really be for a judge to decide. And the public radio stations that are suing also talk about the impact this would have to its millions of radio users and listeners who rely on them for public information and news. Mugo.
Yeah. We'll see how this one plays out. Natalie Brand, thank you so much for joining us today. A former Virginia sheriff is facing a 10-year prison sentence for bribery, but is now a free man, and it's all thanks to a pardon from President Trump. Scott Jenkins, you see here, well, he was convicted of fraud and bribery charges back in March. He was found guilty of deputizing several businessmen in exchange for cash in Culpeper County. Jenkins denied those claims. Now, in a post on social media, Trump called Jenkins a victim of the Biden Department of Justice, claiming he was persecuted by the left. He said the former sheriff does not deserve to serve a day in jail. Jenkins is the latest pardon Trump has given to loyal supporters. Back in April, he pardoned embattled Nevada Republican Michelle Fiore that you see here. She was awaiting several charges that she used money meant for a statue honoring a slain police officer for personal costs, including plastic surgery. Okay, let's turn now to CBS News Justice reporter Jake Rosen, who is in Washington for us. Jake, good to see you today. Can you take us through the case against the sheriff and what exactly prompted Trump to even pardon him?
Sure, Mugo. Well, there were a number of bribery charges against Jenkins, including 2 of which came from undercover FBI agents who allegedly paid $5,000 in one case and $10,000 in another, as Jenkins had kind of this system of deputizing people who, obviously, as law enforcement officers who the Justice Department said were untrained, obviously, because they were just paying for their way into this Culpeper County police system. But in addition to that, he was giving them badges and credentials in exchange for this cash. It happened in a number of cases of people who were close to Jenkins, but then the FBI agents took the stand in this case, gave him the money, said that they gave him the money, and Jenkins, despite saying and testifying for himself in this criminal trial, said that there was no connection between the money that was given to him and these pardons. Obviously, a jury felt otherwise. He was convicted under the Biden administration. That is correct. If you want to extrapolate President Trump's post to say this was a Biden-era prosecution. However, the final steps of this case, including sentencing in March, came under his administration, which could have done something, like leniency or something else. A Trump-appointed U.S. attorney finalized these charges, and so President Trump again continuing to support people who have been longtime supporters of him, and to give somebody who had been convicted, at least in this case, of basically taking advantage of the oath of office that he took for his law enforcement post, certainly another staggering pardon by President Trump.
Yeah, definitely. And also saying he doesn't deserve to spend a day in jail. Wow. Okay. So we know President Trump has pardoned several of his loyalists, as you mentioned there, and we also talked talked about Michelle Fiore and some of the very obvious here, some of the January 6th defendants who attacked the U.S. Capitol. What message do you think this sends?
Well, I think if you take a little bit of a step back, Mugo, remember that the U.S. pardon attorney, so the team of people that usually go through a number of submissions from either the White House or people close to the White House who are asking for people to have their cases looked at and potentially adjudicated or pardoned or granted clemency, that office has essentially been disbanded. A U.S. attorney who was here in Washington, D.C., controversial and longtime ally of those January 6th defendants, Ed Martin, is now in charge, who said he's going to look into President Biden's past pardons, in addition to what they can do going forward to make sure that people who are close to the president are receiving, quote, fair treatment. That kind of institutional pardon system that other White Houses have had is gone. We've seen, obviously, there was the president breaking January 6 pardons on day one of President Trump's term here. But when you look at how they've kind of tallied going forward since that date, there's certainly been more of a political slant to a lot of these, taking care of people, if you want to put it that way, of people who have been longtime supporters of President Trump, not necessarily going through what's supposed to be kind of an apolitical process where people, if there are complaints to be made about the criminal case against them or actions they've taken to, rehabilitate, right, to potentially look into those cases, that's just not happening here.
Yeah, it's not. Okay. Jake Rosen, thank you so much for your reporting. 11 people are injured, including 2 children, after a boat explosion in Florida. What we're learning when we come back. You're watching CBS News 24/7. After nearly 2 weeks on the run and an exhaustive day and night manhunt, 3 more inmates who escaped a New Orleans jail, well, they are back behind bars. Police say an anonymous tip led to the capture of Lenton Van Buren in Baton Rouge last night. An hour after that capture, and about 400 miles away, Texas authorities captured 2 more inmates, Leo Tate and Jermaine Donald, after a high-speed chase. Now look at this. The Louisiana State Police, they posted this picture on your screen here on social media. It shows Van Buren's capture in Baton Rouge. He got a ride to jail courtesy of a Louisiana State Police helicopter. CBS News reporter Katie Wise has the latest from New Orleans.
Well, 3 more of the at-large suspects have been arrested. One was arrested just an hour and a half away from New Orleans in Baton Rouge. 2 others across state lines in Texas by U.S. Marshals after a high-speed chase. That means that there are still only 2 inmates that have escaped that remain at large. One of them is Derek Groves. He's a convicted murderer. We know the family of one of the victims in his case has actually gone into hiding, and they're concerned for their safety. They've been placed under protection since this escape happened more than a week ago. So far, also 9 accomplices have been arrested. 5 of them are accused of helping one of the men who was just arrested yesterday. That's Lenton Van Buren. And more charges, I'm told, could be coming against other potential employees at the facility who may have been involved in this situation. So far, just a jail plumber has been charged for his alleged role in this escape, for turning off the water so that way the men could rip a toilet from the wall and crawl through a hole behind it. But the DA says that they're currently using AI software to comb through jail logs, jail phone calls, to get a better sense of who may have helped conspire to make this daring escape happen. He also says that there's no way that just the jail plumber could have been involved in this in terms of employees at the facility, that these men had to have more help. So we know that forensic evidence, both fingerprint and DNA testing results, are supposed to be coming back very soon, as in a matter of days. And when that evidence comes back, the district attorney here in town says that that could lead to more arrests of employees. We'll keep you posted as soon as we learn more. Back to you.
Katie Weiss, thank you. Jumping the map now to South Florida, where 11 people are recovering after a boat exploded in Fort Lauderdale. 2 of the victims, their children. Witnesses describe the scene as a huge fireball. CBS News national correspondent Manuel Bojorquez has more on this close call.
Still no official word on what caused the blast. Right now, several agencies are looking into that. The boat involved is that white boat behind me. So you can see the blast was not significant enough to destroy the boat, but it was strong enough to injure 11 people who were on board, including 2 children. It happened around 6 p.m. Memorial Day. There were a lot of people out on the water celebrating. This boat was anchored over at a sandbar that a lot of people used to enjoy the water when the explosion happened. Others that were in the water, other boats came out to try to rescue some of the people, victims of the blast who jumped into the water. Rescuers, when they arrived, got them to hospitals and said several of them had burns that were significant. Last check from the local hospital here, 8 of the adult victims were said to be in good condition. And those 2 children, 2 boys, ages 5 and 7, were said to be in fair condition. Back to you.
Manuel Bojorquez, thank you. And over in Philadelphia, tragedy unfolded last night after 2 people were killed and another 9 were injured in a shooting near Lemon Hill. Here's coverage from CBS News Philadelphia earlier.
Good afternoon, Jim. And you mentioned it, a defiant Mayor Sherelle Parker, as she and other city leaders just gave us an update on this mass shooting in Fairmount Park that happened last night. That press conference wrapping up just about 15 minutes ago, so we want to get right into what we know as of now. Police say this shooting happened right around 10:30 last night. Commissioner Kevin Bethel said somewhere in the range of several hundred people had gathered in that area. Now, a few hours before, at around 2:15, Bethel says they received a call from Park Police and from some neighbors in the area at around 8:15, asking officers to come help clear people out. So officers were up there doing that work, trying to get people out. But he said there were a lot of people, there were a lot of vehicles. It was a slow process. Those officers, Bethel says, were about 100 feet away from where that shooting took place at about 10:30 and rushed into that scene. Now, again, as you mentioned, we know at this point 2 people were killed in that shooting, 9 others injured. Those victims ranged in age from 15 years old to 27 years old. And as you said, police at this point believe they are looking for 3 different shooters. Unsure on that number right now, but 3 different casings from different guns were found at that scene. 21 casings found in all at this point. But Mayor Parker, other city leaders, very defiant this morning, saying the city will not tolerate these acts. Take a listen.
I don't want anyone to tell me that what occurred in a place and space where families gather on a regular basis to fellowship, people in neighborhoods gather. We will not be held hostage.
We are not going to concede Lemon Hill. We're not going to concede Belmont Plateau. We are going to fight to keep that safe space for the citizens of Philadelphia.
Now, again, at this point, this remains a very active investigation. A lot police are still sifting through right now. At this point, police could not say if this was a targeted attack or some sort of random act of violence that happened in this large crowd. But several officials, both police and city officials, mentioned those switches. They turn a semi-automatic handgun into a fully automatic handgun. Can be very dangerous in a situation with a lot of people there. Police say that is what they saw last night. But again, they believe at this point that they are looking for at least 3 separate shooters in this investigation. No details on the suspects they are looking for. I also reached out to the ATF. They did confirm they are assisting PPD in this investigation. For now, live at City Hall, Dan Snyder. Jim, we'll send it back to you.
Thanks so much, Dan.
Our thanks to CBS News Philadelphia for that coverage from earlier. Looking live now from Atlanta, where the wet and stormy weather, well, continues today in the South. Meteorologist Jessica Birch is here with more.
All right. Well, over 36 million Americans are gearing up for more severe weather today. Now that we're back to school and work after that long weekend, we still have a lot of active weather that makes it very inconvenient just to get to and from the places we need to go. Anywhere from Texas all the way over into the Carolinas, where we can see localized flooding today and tomorrow. This is the time lapse throughout the next 48 hours. And to add to that, just within the past 48 hours, we've already seen over 5 inches into northern parts of Texas, over 6 inches in certain cities, all the way over into Arkansas. This has been such an impressive system so far, and we're still seeing more of that soggy thunderstorm weather that we're going to continue to watch track off into the east into the evening hours tonight. Now, this is going to be the case throughout the next couple days. Watch what happens, because we do catch a break as we wake up in those early morning hours on Wednesday, anywhere from Dallas all the way over into Atlanta. But you head into the afternoon hours as temperatures start to rise and there's a lot of instability in the atmosphere. We watch these thunderstorms pop right back up, pushing across the Mississippi, impacting major cities like New Orleans, stretched all the way over into Atlanta as we head into our Thursday forecast. And we're going to continue to watch that severe weather track off to the Carolinas throughout the next 48 hours. So in total, we can see an additional 3 inches on top of that 5 to 6 that we've seen so far in Texas, all the way over into Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. We're gearing up for a very similar look when we just look out our windows. Now, severe weather outlook today is showing Texas and all throughout the South from Georgia back over into Mississippi with that slight risk. What does that mean, though? Well, we could see large hail, anywhere up to around 1 inch in size, potentially even larger in southern parts of Texas. Damaging wind is possible. There's still a chance for tornado activity with these storm systems. And then we turn the page tomorrow, and it's looking very similar all throughout Texas and stretched all the way over into the south as we head into our Thursday forecast. More on that coming up in a bit.
All right, Jess, thank you. Turning to Denver, heavy fog is part of the reason for a ground delay at the airport there. The arriving passengers can reportedly expect an average delay of about an hour. Now, the weather was also to blame for delays across the Southeast over Memorial Day weekend. CBS News senior transportation correspondent Chris Van Cleve is tracking holiday travel from Phoenix.
For the 45.1 million people AAA expected to travel at least 50 miles over the Memorial Day holiday, severe weather dampened some travel plans as millions were making their way back home.
It was slightly delayed. It was a plane that arrived a little bit late, so about 30-40 minutes.
In the Dallas area, storms on Monday led to more than 600 flight delays and over 100 cancellations, while Houston's airport saw more than half of its flights delayed. And thunderstorms continued in Denver, delaying more than 500 flights there, with some more than 3 hours late. Southwest Airlines is investigating after a possible lightning strike hit a plane while it was landing in Denver from Tampa Sunday. There were no injuries and the plane landed safely. At airport checkpoints across the country, the TSA expects to screen 18 million people around Memorial Day. In its first major test of the new Real ID requirements, the TSA says they've seen a compliance rate of 93%. While millions took to the skies, most people, an estimated 39.4 million, opted for the roads and found gas prices at their lowest in 4 years, averaging $3.17 a gallon. Sharvia Parmota and her family are extending the long holiday, driving from New York to D.C.
It's been really smooth and a good experience, hopefully.
Thanks to Chris Van Cleve for that report. Looking live at the big board right now, though, the Dow, it is up hundreds of points right now, more than 600. We'll explain why Wall Street is seeing a jump. Stay with us right here on CBS News 24/7. We have breaking news coming into our newsroom. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. now says the department will remove COVID-19 vaccines from the immunization schedule for pregnant women and children. Take a listen to part of that announcement posted on social media.
Last year, the Biden administration urged healthy children to get yet another COVID shot despite the lack of any clinical data to support the repeat booster strategy in children.
That ends today. It's common sense and it's good science.
There's no evidence healthy kids need it today, and most countries have stopped recommending it for children.
We're now one step closer to realizing President Trump's promise to make America healthy again.
Now, this move puts Kennedy at odds with his new officials at the Food and Drug Administration, who recently said pregnancy was among the underlying conditions that warranted continued eligibility for COVID-19 vaccine approvals. And we have an update from that New York hearing involving the controversial congestion pricing program. A judge ruled in favor of blocking the Trump administration from withholding funding from the state if they refused to remove the pricing initiative. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy threatened to withhold federal government approvals for New York projects if the state does not suspend the pricing. The newly granted restraining order is in effect until June 9th, meaning the White House cannot pull the funds until then. The current program charges most vehicles a toll of $9 during peak hours to enter parts of Manhattan. All right, let's take a live look at the big boards right now. We can see here the Dow, it is up. Stocks are rallying after signs of a de-escalating trade war between the U.S. and the EU. The two sides have agreed to fast-track trade talks. Last week, Trump said he wanted to put a 50% tariff on goods from the European Union beginning June 1st. But Sunday, he set a new date of July 9th. U.S. imports from the EU totaled more than $600 billion in 2024. This is about a 5% increase from 2023. Plus, new data, well, it shows U.S. consumer confidence rebounding in the month of May. This comes after 5 straight months of decline. A White House spokesperson released this statement. It says, despite doomsday prophesizing, President Trump's America First economic agenda continues to pay off. He goes on to say, today's consumer confidence report reflects multiple solid inflation and jobs reports that Americans have seen under Trump, as well as a GDP report that showed a whopping 22% spike in gross domestic investment in the first quarter of 2025. Let's get to CBS News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady to help us make sense of that. Kelly, I guess the big question here, because we can see the Trump administration is seeing and using this as a chance to basically praise all of the policies the president has put in place. But we want to know, what's the latest consumer confidence report? What exactly is it telling us here?
So the latest consumer confidence report shows that consumers feel a lot better about the economy. We saw 5 straight months where we saw a decline. And remember, the consumer confidence report, it measures how people are feeling about their financial situation, about the job market, about the overall economy now and in the future. In this month's report, we saw both of those metrics, how people are feeling now, how people are feeling about the future, spike far more than we expected. So it's still in the negative. It was a reading of 98. Basically anything above 100 is considered positive, that people feel positive about how things are going, but certainly a lot better than they did last month when we saw a reading of 85.7. So that's quite a jump in 1 month. And the biggest reason is the optimism around trade deals. Remember, this month's report, or May's report, is inclusive of that meeting between China and the U.S., where there was a bit of a pullback in this escalating trade war. And so that really seems to have bolstered consumers' confidence about where things are going. It doesn't mean that they are going to be right. Just when I've said before in the past that all of the doom and gloom that we were feeling from consumers, it didn't necessarily mean that was going to be right. It's just a metric of how people are feeling and how that may impact their spending.
Yeah, and you mentioned how people may feel better because they think this trade war is easing up. But speaking of that, we know President Trump is delaying tariffs on the EU. But why are some people thinking it is a little too early to celebrate this?
Because we don't have any tangible trade deal with the EU yet. We have a lot of public declarations over the weekend that there's going to be trade talks and meetings, and there's going to be phone calls made and deals are going to be done, but there's nothing tangible. And I will highlight that this delay until July 9th, this was already in place. That reciprocal tariff that the White House was placing on the EU and other nations going back to April 2nd, on April 9th, that everything was delayed 90 days until July 9th. So this moving up of that deadline to the beginning of June and then again moving back to July, it just shows all of this back and forth. So investors that I'm talking to are saying, yeah, there's optimism, but we've also been here before, and we've just introduced this tariff swinging uncertainty back into the picture, where a lot of folks were hoping, okay, we're going to get those trade deals, it's going to be tangible, there's going to be something that people can really count on versus the rhetoric that we're seeing right now.
All right, the uncertainty is still in the air. Kelly O'Grady, thank you so much for joining us today. Ahead, the latest on the trial of Sean Diddy Combs as we enter week 3 of court proceedings. Stay with us right here on CBS News 24/7. Welcome back. The escalation between Russia and Ukraine, it ramped up over the weekend. You see here, Russia unleashed one of its biggest drone attacks on Kyiv since the start of the war just 3 years ago. Now, between Friday and Sunday, the Kremlin launched nearly 900 drones at Ukraine. That is according to a Ukrainian official. President Trump said on Truth Social that Putin has gone, quote, absolutely crazy, then had this to say to reporters.
Can you provide us an update on Russia and Ukraine as well?
Yeah, I'll give you an update. I'm not happy with what Putin's doing. He's killing a lot of people, and I don't know what the hell happened to Putin. I've known him a long time, always gotten along with him, but he's sending rockets into cities and killing people, and I don't like it at all, okay? We're in the middle of talking, and he's shooting rockets into Kiev and other cities. I don't like it at all.
CBS News foreign correspondent MTS Taib breaks down how this unfolded over the weekend.
Well, overnight, even more Russian drones, this time 60, injuring 3 people in the south of the country. Well, of course, that was devastating. This isn't as large as what we've seen for the past 3 consecutive nights over the weekend, which saw massive drone strikes against Ukraine, the largest drone attacks since Russian President Vladimir Putin launched his full-scale invasion back in February of 2020. Now, several Ukrainians were killed and many more were injured in those large-scale attacks. Posting on social media, President Trump suggested Mr. Putin had, in his words, quote, gone crazy. He also criticized the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky for calling out apparent U.S. inaction against Russia. Whatever the case, it also comes at a sign that, a hopeful sign that there is some movement. Ukraine and Russia have completed what's being described as a 1,000 for 1,000 prisoner swap after 3 days of exchanges. Now, President Zelensky said on Sunday that the final 300 or so Ukrainian captives scheduled to be released had been returned from Russia in the final stages again of this largest ever swap between these 2 countries. But it seems these 2 sides are still a long way off from making any kind of a deal. And it's clear President Trump is growing increasingly frustrated by that and by President Putin's continued attacks on Ukraine. And of course, as we've been saying, the slow pace of peace talks, we're also hearing that President Trump is now reportedly eyeing sanctions against Moscow. But the real concern is he is also reportedly considering abandoning the talks altogether. Now, this, of course, would be a remarkable change for a leader who campaigned on his ability to end the conflict on his first day in office. What's also unclear is that, or rather what would happen if the U.S. did in fact retreat from this peace process, and whether President Trump would continue to provide military support to Ukraine. Back to you.
MTS Taib, thank you. Let's jump the map now to New York City, where the federal sex trafficking trial of hip-hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs enters its 3rd week. So far, we have heard testimony from people like rapper Kid Cudi and Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. On the stand today, a former assistant for the mogul. Her name, Capricorn Clark. CBS News legal reporter Katrina Kaufman has the latest.
An emotional Capricorn Clark has been testifying about the abuse and threats that she both witnessed and endured while working for Sean Combs. Clark began as Combs' personal assistant, but worked her way up through the company and also worked very closely with his ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. She testified about a time where she saw Combs beating Ventura. She said it was full force. With each kick, she would crouch more and more into the fetal position, and that he said that if Clark jumped in, that he would hurt her as well. This was the same day that Combs supposedly found out that Ventura was involved with Scott Mescudi. That's the rapper Kid Cudi. Clark testified that that day he kidnapped her from her home. He showed up with a gun and made her go with him to Mescudi's house. Later on, when she left the company, she said that Combs told her she would never work again and that he would make her kill herself. During cross-examination, though, the defense did poke some holes in her testimony. They brought up a text message that she sent to Combs where she said, "Did you ever know that I had the biggest crush on you before I started working for you?" Clark on the stand said that she didn't remember sending that message, but it could leave some doubt in the jury's mind. Back to you.
Katrina Kaufman, thank you. Now looking live from Atlanta as we track storms in the south, meteorologist Jessica Birch will explain what it means for you. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. And you are looking live right now from Atlanta, where the wet and stormy weather continues in the south today. Meteorologist Jessica Birch, she joined us again this hour with more.
All right, let's take a quick look at what's going on for our friends down south, because we are gearing up for more stormy weather. Heavy amounts of rain expected right around the corner, anywhere from Texas all the way across the Mississippi, down into the south as we head into the next 48 hours. And this comes right after we've seen over 6 inches of rainfall already just within the past 48 hours in places like Ben Lomond, Arkansas, all the way over into Jewett in Texas. Now we're going to continue to see stormy conditions last into the afternoon hours today. We'll catch a little bit of a break into the overnight hours tonight, and then we gear up for more stormy weather as we head all the way into our Wednesday and Thursday forecast. Localized flooding is possible, large amounts of hail at times, and to add to that, lightning is possible as we head into our Thursday forecast. In total, we can gear up for around 3 additional inches of rain just within the next 48 hours, anywhere from Louisiana over into Mississippi and Alabama and Georgia. We'll keep a close eye on that as we head into the coming days. Over to you.
Two Philadelphia area patriots who lost legs in the line of duty, they are now finding new freedom with a martial art. CBS News Philadelphia's Stephanie Stahl shows us how jiu-jitsu is making a difference.
So push off your right leg and turn into him.
Men who lost their legs serving country and community, finding a new kind of strength doing jiu-jitsu, a Japanese martial art that focuses on ground fighting techniques.
This also helped build a sense of normalcy for me.
PZ Tan lost his legs in a roadside bomb in Iraq. We first told you about him in 2006 when he was a student at Cabrini and learning how to walk again at Walter Reed.
I was angry, I was a little nutso, I was a little crazy.
He says it's been a difficult journey getting his life back together, and jiu-jitsu has been an important part of it, mentally and physically.
I feel like this sport gives me a sense of normalcy and unstoppable, being unstoppable and keep going and keep on fighting. Here? Yep.
His partner on this training day at the Vault is Mike Egan. He's another story we've been following. In 2007, we told you about the Bristol Township police officer who lost a leg when he was hit by a drunk driver.
When an injury like this first happens, you're shocked. It was not something that you ever thought you were going to have to deal with, and now all of a sudden you are.
Step back. Yes.
20 years later, he says these sessions are a great workout.
So there's a lot more going on than I thought it was.
The owner of the gym says jiu-jitsu is great training for everybody.
It's something that you just take into every other area of your life.
For PZ and Mike, it's about strength and confidence.
It's a good time. I really enjoyed it.
I can do whatever nothing's gonna stop me. 1, 2, 3.
Unstoppable comrades now with new kinds of powers. Stephanie Stahl, CBS News, Philadelphia.
The White House with another move showing it is not backing down in its battle against Harvard University. More of that when Lindsay Reiser takes over next, right here on CBS News 24/7. And our political show is getting a new look and a new name. Tonight at 5 p.m. Eastern, stream the premiere of The Takeout with Major Garrett. He is taking the weekly podcast he hosted for 8 years to 5 nights a week right here on CBS News 24/7. And also today, get ready for a new show called 24/7 Primetime, hosted by Elizabeth Cook. Will deliver the news you need to know from major national and international headlines to breakthroughs in tech and AI to the biggest headlines in the sports world. And you can start watching from 7:30 to 9 p.m. Eastern, streaming on the CBS News app and CBSNews.com. Lots of news ahead. Stay with us on CBS News 24/7.